Hello and welcome back to Stop and Go F1 for this, our recap of that sprint race from the United States Grand Prix. Here in the UK, the race started at 11 o'clock, and the biggest challenge for anyone during that race was to stay awake, because that wasn't great. Let's break it down. Before we get into it, like and subscribe, all that good stuff. You gotta do that first. But George Russell has a free-place grid penalty for impeding Leclerc. He's down to P11. That wasn't the last penalty of the day for George Russell. We have got Max Verstappen on pole with Charles Leclerc alongside. Carlos Sainz is on the softs. Everyone else is on the mediums, because that's the sensible thing to do. I think, like most people, I expected and knew that Sainz would kind of fall off as this race went ahead. Charles Leclerc later on would say that it was kind of, we're kind of getting data on the soft, so we know how the soft will react in the race. I'll tell you how it's going to react. No one's going to use it. So, I think everyone's learnt that now. Off the start, Max Verstappen hyper-aggressive against Charles Leclerc, properly pushing him wide, off into the pit exit. And when they come back on, they're both massively offline. Max is able to keep the lead, but Charles would lose a position to Lewis Hamilton going into turn 2. Further back, Oscar Piastri has apparently completely cooked his tyres and is just going backwards. So we have Sergio Perez versus Oscar Piastri. This is a little battle that lasts a few laps now for P6. Some very aggressive defending from Piastri at the start of this little battle. I think later on into the race he's just completely given up on defending. Sergio Perez does get past eventually. Russell then gets past him for P8 but goes off the track. Gasly also gets past him. It's really struggling. In 5 laps, he went from P6 to P9, and he would go even further back. We get a bit of a Circuit of the America US Grand Prix tradition, which is Lewis Hamilton complaining about Max Verstappen going off the track. I think this is the 3rd year in a row now that we've had this tradition. It may be even longer. We might even see it tomorrow, but it's lovely to have these traditions when we go to tracks. Lewis Hamilton going, Max has gone off the tracks. Apparently, according to the track limit tracker that I saw on Twitter from Multiviewer, I don't think Max had one track limit violation, but that's a discussion for another time. George Russell gets a 5-second penalty. This is for when he overtook Piastri off the track. You see, with these penalties, I think Alex Albon talked about it after the Italian Grand Prix. If you're in a car which is so much faster, you may as well overtake off the track and then just go off, because that 5-second penalty, yes, it hurt hurt Russell in later on against someone else, but for Piastri, it gave him absolutely nothing. So, that's how it is. Albon's now ahead of Piastri as well, so Piastri was down to 10th. Now we get a really fun battle, actually, between Lando Norris and Carlos Sainz, the former teammates going head-to-head here, as Carlos Sainz's tyres are going off because he's on the softs, and of course they're going to go off. He would eventually get past on lap 10, so it took about 3 laps for Lando to get past, up into P4. At this point, Lando is about 6.7 seconds off Charles Leclerc in P3, but he would very much close that gap down by the end of the race. Perez is the next guy to battle with Sainz on the next lap for P5, and Perez just makes it look easy. I think Sainz, very much like Piastri, had very much given up at this point and just wanted to get the car to the end of the race. So Perez gets past Sainz for P5. Then Russell is on the back of Carlos Sainz. Now this was an interesting one, because it was a very fun battle here, with Russell desperately trying to get past and not being able to. But at the exact same time, it was lap 14 of 19. So even if Russell had got past, he wouldn't have got 5 seconds ahead. And I don't think he would have got that far ahead just in general. Especially when we get to later on, this battle went on lap after lap after lap. when you're like the last lap and you know you have a 5 second penalty and you know like Gasly behind you is about 2 seconds off, you just give up at that point. But I'm not George Russell. Stroll, what an awful weekend he's having. And it's not even his fault this time. His brake problems have come back. His brakes are entirely gone. For the majority of the race, he's actually ahead of Alonso. I don't think he qualified ahead of him, but... oh, sorry, I'm choking on the kind words to Stroll. So yeah, he didn't qualify ahead of him, but was able to get past him on the start, was in front of him for the majority of the race, and then was up until this point where he had to retire the car. This has been it's so weird for Stroll, because I remember in Japan this happened as well. When Stroll does well, the car doesn't know what's going on, panics and shuts down. Because I remember in Japan he was doing quite well, and the car broke down. Here, he wasn't in the points or anything, but that Aston looks like a disaster this weekend, so Stroll was doing very well for that. For the first time in over a month, he qualified into Q2 in the sprint shootout. Here, he's ahead of his teammates. The car just gives up on him. We'll see tomorrow, will the car give up on him again? So he retires the car on lap 17. Zhou gets a 5-second penalty for pushing Magnussen off the track further down, and then it's the end of the race. Max Verstappen wins, I think, at about 3 seconds ahead of Lewis Hamilton in P2. Charles Leclerc completes the top 3, but Lando Norris is behind in P4 only by 0.8 of a second, so he massively closed down that gap. In the clean air, Lando had a lot of pace, so the McLaren does have the pace if the tyres are there. So, don't write off Piastri for tomorrow just yet. Perez finishes in 5th. Sainz settles for 6th. Gasly finishes 8th but gets promoted to 7th because George Russell has the penalty. George is 8th. Albon 9th. Piastri is 10th. Now, when does the points finish? I don't think Albon did get points, did he? Because it only goes to... it's only the top 8 that gets points, I'm pretty sure. I'm going to double check now, everyone. Sprint... points go to P8. So Albon, no points for Albon. It was Piastri finished 10th. Ocon was 11th with Ricciardo in 12th, just behind. Ricciardo actually looking very decent considering he hasn't raced in a month and a half, 2 months. So yeah, good result there for Ricciardo. Alonso settles for 13th, Yuki in 14th, Hülkenberg in 15th with Bottas in 16th, Zhou in 17th, Magnussen 18th. The Haas upgrade either doesn't agree with this track or just isn't working. I mean, they brought this entire new concept of car, and the only thing it's done is taken away their qualifying pace. So yeah, not great for Haas at all. Sargent is the last of the finishers in 19th place, and then Stroll is our one and only DNF in the race. My goodness, it's boring when I only have 2 pages of notes. So, yeah. Hopefully, we'll be back. Well, we will be back this time tomorrow. Hopefully, I'll be sat here talking about a much more exciting race because I would not want to watch this for 2 hours. Hopefully, a bit of strategy comes into play, but at the exact same time, I don't think the softs will be viable in the race. So, we'll wait and see. Maybe there will be a madness. Of course, Max is starting from P6, which throws a bit of spice in there. It's a Leclerc-Norris front row, which I don't think we've ever seen before. There's a lot of guys out of place further down, so who knows? Maybe a bit of fun for us tomorrow. Until then, though, remember to let me know what you thought of the race in the comments. I'm going to go to bed. I'll see you tomorrow. Until then, have a good one. Goodbye.